everyone, welcome to Yachting International Radio. You're with Karine and Rayson from the Crew Coach on the Wellbeing Project. This week, I interview the founder of Yachting International Radio, Rhea. Rhea shares with us her experience of mental health conditions, as well as her experience of being under suicide watch at the age of 18. This is a must-watch interview. Reason being is that it's going to give you insight into how to support someone who's experiencing a mental health condition or conditions. Okay, let's get into the interview. Hi, everyone. So I have Rhea from Yachting International Radio with us. Welcome, Rhea.
Thank you very much, Karen. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you for joining us because we're specifically talking today about mental health, which is quite a personal but passionate topic for both of us, with my background in mental health and counseling as well as coaching, and your personal experience with mental health as well as your friends' journeys around mental health and people reaching out to you for support. We're connecting today just to open up the discussion and get people to start speaking about it, because we still feel that within our industry, it's not being spoken about. And as a result, people are making assumptions around mental health or feel uncomfortable about talking to mental health or how to manage their own mental health. So we're speaking with Rhea, who's got an immense amount of experience around mental health. So we're just going to have a very natural conversation today about mental health, and we hope that you all walk away with something of value, which I'm sure you will. So Rhea, a bit of background about you. You own a radio station and you use your platform to raise awareness in a range of topics. Is that right?
Radio and multimedia, yeah.
Yeah. Okay,
so all
great.
Across social media, essentially.
Fantastic. And with regards to mental health, how do you think where did your journey begin around working on your personal mental health?
Well, it started when I was really young, which actually is what we're seeing in the industry today is quite young, in their late teens and early 20s. I think the first time that I really realized that I needed help was when I was about 16 years old. And, it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. And it's not, for some, it's life circumstances. For others, it's a chemical imbalance in the brain. It's just the same as having some sort of blood disorder and I think some people don't think of it that way. They think of it as, oh, well, they're just not dealing with things. But back to my own journey, I suffered from quite a bit. And I think it was about the age of 18 that I ended up hospitalized for a month under suicide watch. They had given me a medication that now is known, Prozac, it was called then. And I think it's still around to a lesser degree, but it is now known that was the one drug that you shouldn't be giving those that are suicidal, because it actually gave them the strength to carry through on their threat. So I attempted to take my own life. Thank God I failed. So I ended up in the hospital for a month. And my journey continues from there. I was taken out, and I've suffered anxiety, depression, all of those things throughout my life. And still to this day, I still struggle with that. But I'm lucky that I have something that I can focus on that keeps me here, that keeps me fighting day in, day out to overcome anything that is going on in my life. And for me, it's my children.
And you were really, really young at that age. So did you have any support around mental health and your own battle with mental health at that age?
Do you know what? No, because, even now, and without actually revealing my real age, this was 20 plus years ago. So if we're looking at the stigmatization of mental illness today, can you imagine what it was like 20 plus years ago? I mean, you didn't talk about that sort of thing. I mean, my parents, the fact that I was in a hospital, under these circumstances, well, nobody knew. I mean, I was away on vacation for that month. That it's just not something that was talked about. So you didn't have the support structure because you didn't know where to go. I had psychologists and psychiatrists, and of course the medication, but it just didn't there wasn't enough known. There really wasn't enough known. There wasn't enough study. And people didn't have a concept of really the depths of despair that someone who gets into, the full-blown depression can get to. And it's only, I think, in the last, say, 10 years or 5 years where some absolutely amazingly famous people that have done so much for other people, Robin Williams being one of the greatest comedians of all time, absolutely hilarious, making people laugh till the day before he, ended his own life. It wasn't until these people started ending their lives that people started thinking, wait a minute, these aren't typical. We would imagine someone ending their life who, has a really bad upbringing or, a lot of trauma in their lives. And that isn't necessarily the case. Sometimes it's somebody that has been raised in an absolutely amazingly wonderful family. It is a chemical imbalance in the brain.
And it doesn't discriminate.
Some people just can't control. No, it can be of all races, all backgrounds, all socioeconomic platform. It doesn't matter. It can affect anybody and at any time, not necessarily as a youngster. It's not maybe something that happens when you're 19 or 20. It could happen when you're in your 40s, 50s, 60s. It's not an ageist thing either.
No. And did you feel that you had a label attached to you because of your experience and being put in under suicide watch? Yeah, did that impact your identity as a teenager in any way?
Well, nobody really knew, because it was, I can imagine it was the sort of same concept as my mother's age when a woman got pregnant and she was out of wedlock. They went away on vacation. Do you know what I mean? And then they came back after the baby was born, and it was like a 9-month vacation. Nobody talked about it. And that was essentially the same for me at that stage. So, you couldn't explain, you couldn't talk about it, because then people would look down upon you.
Yeah.
And once you've been through that experience, you become literally very embarrassed. If you haven't succeeded, that's just one more thing that you didn't succeed in doing. I didn't succeed in life, so I wanted to end my life. And am I,
Sorry, just pause there.
No worries.
Yeah, so you just said you didn't want, you felt like you didn't succeed in your life in general, so a failed attempt at ending your life was just an affirmation.
Was another failure.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Okay. So with having experienced a range of mental health issues, being depression and anxiety, was there anything else that you went through?
Well, I mean, it all sort of, you start becoming really insecure within yourself, because these anxiety attacks, am I good enough? Am I capable of doing this? And it affects every aspect of your life. Am I doing a good enough job? Am I giving my 100%? And then you find you give your 100% and you work yourself to the bone trying to prove to yourself that you're good enough, let alone to others. And you always feel like you're failing. And, even now, there are times where I think, what am I doing? I'm in a career now, and I've started this radio station with, almost 27 years of experience behind me. So I know what I'm doing, and I have been giving my knowledge to so many people, other people throughout my life. And I finally decided that it was time to do it for myself. But you still wonder, you still think, do I know what I'm doing? And at the same time, you have to balance. For example, I've got 3 children, 2 whom are now still living with me. And you're always giving yourself a hard time, because you think, am I being a good enough parent? Am I giving enough to my business? I'm not successful. I'm not perfect at either one. And I want to be perfect, but perfection is unattainable. So I think sometimes you just have to sit back and think, you know what? It's okay. You're doing your best. And you have to talk to yourself and talk yourself through it.
And what kept you stuck, per se? So when you were in a very difficult time and you felt like you couldn't get out, what were the thoughts that you were having that kept you stuck?
I guess you just feel like there's no way out. There's nowhere to go. There's no turning point. Your walls close in. And I'm sure that if you were able to find a door in those four walls, you'd be able to see out. And that's where friends and family come in, because you really think your world has closed off so much, because the depression, it starts wide. And as you gradually sink into that depression, it seeks down to just a tiny little room that's all blocked off. There's no doors, there's no windows, it's just, you're a tiny little box. So you literally cannot see a way out. There's no way out. There's no a solution that you or I right now might be able to figure out for this person, whatever their issue is. They can't see that because it's a black little box. So there needs to be somebody that creates that door, that opens that door, that says this is the path.
Yes. I think from my experience, what I've noticed, creating a sense of safety for that person is so important. And I mean emotional safety. So I had a client who was 21. He was in prison for the first time. His mother was completely like a drug addict and abusive towards him and couldn't provide a safe environment for him. And as a result of their relationship, he ended up in custody, and he isolated himself from everyone. He didn't eat much. Sometimes he wouldn't come down for meals. His hair was very long, so his personal hygiene, his fingernails were very long, was all deteriorating, so he couldn't physically take care of himself. And psychologists went in there and they were screening him to put him on suicide watch because they were very concerned for his safety. And he was put on my caseload, and each day I'd go and check in on him and say, would you like to come for a walk with me today? And the answer was no, because he was in such a bad place. He didn't want to see anyone, didn't want to talk to anyone. But I showed up every single day for that week. And eventually he came out for 5 minutes. And I said, all I want is 5 minutes with you. We went for a walk. And he just walked. He sat, like, we walked in silence, in terms of he didn't say anything, but I threw out a little bit of conversation. But that formed a relationship without me even knowing, because I showed that I was consistent and that there was someone that cared. And I think that's what people in those vulnerable positions, they just want to feel heard. They want to have their feelings acknowledged, and they want to feel cared for. So looking back at the situations that you've been through and knowing what you know now, what would your older self tell your younger self?
Do you know, there's always a reason. There's always a reason to keep going. Life is an absolutely magical, ever-changing entity. What seems like there's no hope and there's nowhere to go today, it doesn't mean that tomorrow the entire axis of the universe could be changed 365 degrees. You know, if I had succeeded, I wouldn't have brought 3 beautiful beings into this world. You know, I wouldn't have had the experience to move to Mallorca and to live in gorgeous Spain and travel Europe. And, you know, these are things that I never, ever thought that I could achieve. I thought my life was over and that was it. Stuck in a small northern British Columbia, Canada logging town. I thought that was the end of my life. And I mean, it's different for the kids in yachting that are coming up now. And I shouldn't call them kids because they are adults, but it's, you know, I think a lot of it comes to do with the fact that society today tells us we have to be perfect. Society tells us that we have to be high achievers. And we're constantly looking at a barrage of social media images that tell us how amazingly wonderful this person's life is or this person's life is. And we compare ourselves on an ongoing basis and think, but I'm not nearly as good as they are. And I'm not nearly as good as they are. And how can I attain that? Well, you know what? It's unattainable because it's not real. And if we stop and live in the present moment every single second of every single day, I think we'll find a little bit of joy in anything. I mean, whether it be that you're sitting at a coffee shop and the sun is shining, there's some joy in that. You know, whether or not you're depressed and in your apartment in a bed, you've got a bed. So there is some joy in that, you know, and the need for friends to constantly be there for these people, you know, constantly just to even sit, you know, bring food, bring cake, anything, you know, just to let people know, like you did with this young gentleman, you know, you showed up every day. He didn't speak, he didn't do anything, but you showed up every day, and he finally felt like somebody cared enough. And that's the most important thing I think somebody can do for someone in that situation.
And what would be the faux pas per se, like in terms of what not to say to someone who is suffering from a mental health condition?
It's all in your head. Don't tell somebody it's all in their head, because you know what? It is all in our head. And sometimes it's not. I mean, sometimes those things that drive us to this depression are very real indeed. I mean, sometimes it's financial. Sometimes it's abuse in the past. Sometimes it's abuse that is going on presently. Sometimes it is discrimination. There's many different reasons why somebody gets into a depression. So don't tell people it's in their head. Don't tell people that it's all going to be okay right away. Sometimes you don't even need to talk. Just say, I'm here. You know, don't tell them they need to get out.
Yes.
Because that's not the key. They don't need to get out. They need to feel better. And they can do that on their own. Their mind has to figure out how to do that. But there just needs to be somebody there to help them make sure they're still here 24 hours from now to continue that process.
That's great advice. Thank you. So how do people connect and hear about your program and your show? Is there any hot features that you have at the moment that people can tune in and listen to?
Well, we have a lot, actually. You can tune into us at www.yachtinginternationalradio.com. And we have a whole bunch of things all throughout the social media platforms. We have LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube account, the Facebook or website. I usually have to count. I'm like, how many platforms do I have to work with every day? But we have Inspiration with Manda, who she is every Monday at noon, and she is absolutely inspirational. I wanted to bring something to the yachting community that would, like you do, you know, just give somebody something that is a positive to start the week off with. We have Luxury with Natalia out of the French Riviera. She talks to all sorts of people, from some of the most amazing jewelry designers to some of the top yacht charters and that sort of thing. Is purely luxury. We have Late Night with Martina. So there's a whole sort of schedule of things that we have on our Facebook page. I've got the schedule up there. Just lots of interesting things. And we also have on our website, if you ever want to do a shout out, you can actually hit a little button on our website and record a little whatever. I'm sending a song out, or, you know, this is
that's so
Karen,
fun.
and we're listening to Yachting International Radio. Yeah,
That's
I've had to edit a few, so I'm just saying. But people get drunk sometimes. I think it's great fun.
Hilarious. But that's wonderful. But, I think with mental health, the whole idea is being there for each other and building a community and a network that you can lean upon. And that's exactly what I can see you wanting to achieve, and certainly what I want to achieve, is just to create a beautiful community that respect and care about each other. Because as you know, people are ending their lives within the industry. You've had a few, especially in Palma recently, there's been a couple. And I think this is really, really important. And at the start of this interview, I said that this is a discussion that we would like to continue. So if there are any listeners out there, please reach Rhea or myself and contact us, and we would be happy to do a show, to interview you. We don't have to show your face, so we can just do audio, totally up to you. But I think it's time that we talk about the subject and we educate others what mental health is truly about, and for those that are suffering, what that's like, so we can build compassion and empathy and understanding to build these people up and nurture them.
Well, and I think too, it's safe to say that both you and I are always open to be contacted on a private basis. You know, I would drop anything at a moment's notice. I'm in the center of Palma now, so I am close to any of the ports within the Palma area, and I would drop everything at a moment's notice to just go and sit with somebody or talk to somebody, because you know, sometimes that's all they need. You know, I'm a mom, and I like cooking, so I can always cook and you know, or bring you to my house and feed you up and do all those things that mom would do. Because I think sometimes too, especially in the yachting industry, when you're so far away from home, you know, sometimes that really gets in your head as well. And you just feel like, you know, you're a ship drifting in the sea with absolutely no anchor or nowhere to steer.
That's right.
And, you know, it's you miss those things. So, you know, I just did want to make sure that you can contact me on my email. I have Skype. I'm on Facebook, any of the social media platforms. If you want to, I am the one that operates all the social media platforms. So guaranteed, I will be the only one that you will get in touch with if you contact me through any forms of social media, and I will be in touch with you right away.
That's so kind of you. Thank you, Rhea. Thank you so much for your time and sharing your journey, your personal journey with all of us. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. It's something near and dear to my heart, and I'm glad that someone like you is bringing it to the attention and bringing it to mainstream so that we all understand that it's okay, it's perfectly fine, and we can all deal with it as a community together.
Thank you.